If the freedom movement is the only thing standing in front of us in New York City,
foreign or domestic, who do you serve? You serve the state. You serve the New World Order.
Episode 17 with my brother Sal Greco. Welcome, Sal.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, you have such a story, and I can't wait to tell your story to my viewers, man. You were a police officer for 14 years, not one blemish on your record, and you were let go because you were friends with Roger Stone. Is that right, Sal?
That is correct. It's a crazy story. So, yes, I have a 14-year career in the NYPD, unblemished record. As you can see behind me, I've had numerous awards. I had over 300 plus arrests. Nothing nefarious on my record. Along the way, somebody became irked in the police department that I was a friend of Roger Stone's. Therefore, they started a witch hunt that lasted 19 months. I was interrogated 2 times. I was followed. I was being surveyed. I was monitored. I had to go through a department trial because this is what they charged me with. In the patrol guide, this is the book that governs the NYPD. It's the rule book of the NYPD that governs all ranks, civilian and uniform, including the police commissioner. And there's a rule that has no exceptions. And the rule goes like this. You cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who is reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. They're stating that this was Roger Stone. On top of it, they said it was uncompensated security for him, whatever that means. There is no charge in the patrol guide for uncompensated security. It's made up. It's like a shiny object to throw in front of your face to say, oh, look at this. Look here. So I vigorously fought these charges in a departmental trial, but it was a railroad job. While I was there, they said that they put in my record to get my records, which are illegally. They violated a court order doing that. They put that I was involved in narcotics. But then they admit on the stand that I was never involved in narcotics. They never drug tested me for narcotics. But that's the only reason anyone even gave them my records, because it's all an internal subpoena. It's administrative. It's not a real subpoena. But they fool companies like Verizon and they fool people. And not that I did anything wrong, because even though I was terminated and the judge ultimately recommended my termination and the police commissioner at the time, Keyshawn Sewell, she agreed and she wrote in there that my continued employment in the NYPD would be detrimental to the police department due to my relationship with Roger Stone. That's why I was terminated. But the fact that they said that the part with their narcotics part, they never had anything on that. They made that up out of thin air. They said narcotics is the gateway to your records. So then we'll fast forward. I sued them after my termination. And then a few months later, I amended my complaint in the court because, as you could recall, Cardi B shows up to the police academy as a guest or whatever for the NYPD. She's a convicted criminal and a known gangbanger who is being very adversarial to the police department. She waltzes in, and remember, the NYPD is the police academy is a secure police facility. There's documents there, there's guns, there's weapons. She's paraded around by them, so they're running around with her, hobnobbing, high-fiving, taking pictures. Meanwhile, you're violating the very rule you said I violated.
Right.
I took this to them. And the judge, so they had a motion to dismiss. Oh, by the way, after this incident with Cardi B, the illustrious mayor of New York, former police captain Eric Adams, who's in a cloud of dust right now, a very big cloud of dust surrounding him, he states at a press conference the day after, we don't discard people. Heck, I wish I was at the police academy. The problem is he discarded me. So that's how he gets entangled in this, the beginning part. So Cardi B, being at the police academy, violates every rule in the NYPD. By the way, remember I said there's no exceptions to that rule. So they're associating with a criminal. I don't know what they were doing with her at the police academy. But then there's more. Because as you know, as of late, And it also involves these guys going after my friend. I came to find out that there was a place up in the industrial section of the Bronx. The name of the place is Con Sofrito. It's a restaurant lounge. It's actually owned on paper. The liquor license belongs to Richard Caban, who is the brother of the current NYPD police commissioner, Eddie Caban. Now, and on his LinkedIn, the owner and manager of this place is the infamous Jimmy Rodriguez, a self-admitted criminal who is well known to have run the infamous Jimmy's Cafe back in the day, which had Major League Baseball ban their players from going there for about 2 or 3 years. Also in his place, there were shootings, there's unsolved murders, there was drug deals, all the rappers, all the felons went there. That was the kind of place it was. He then later on went on to have numerous other places like Jimmy's Downtown, Don Coquille, and then eventually now before Con Sofrito at Acri Cafe. He's always been a part of these places, whether he's the liquor license holder or not. I don't know. I just know that he's always, that's his place. So this place, Con Sofrito, I came to find out was been frequented by every high-ranking officer in the NYPD, from the police commissioner on down. You're talking about Caban, Sewell, Dermot Shea was a police commissioner. He's there. Eric Adams is there all the time. He had a birthday party there. He went to another party there. He's always there. There's numerous pictures and times that he's been there with Jimmy, with Richie. So, you think about it. We're just going to go with the original rule.
Right.
You can't wrongfully knowingly associate with someone who's really believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity.
And they're blatantly doing it. They're blatantly
doing it.
Right. Over and over, not even just once. Like, you're not showing one example, you're showing multiple examples, and you're painting this picture.
Jimmy not only fits this rule, but Jimmy is also a mob associate. You go back, you can pull this up on Sit Down News. There's a mob associate. He became an informant or whatever. He admits to Jimmy Rodriguez being a mob associate. So now you have the police involved with this guy. Now I'm going to tell you this. The 45th precinct had a party there. They've had this party called Winter Wonderland where they have children show up there. And now the other problem with this, I mean, it's just all kinds of NYPD parties, private, public, sponsored by Internal Affairs, all these parties there. So,
wow.
Yeah. And Carl Hasty, who's a state assemblyman, who's an actual leader of the state assembly, he always has fundraisers there. It's like his political clubhouse. Also pictured there during this time, Letitia James, also the district attorney of the Bronx, Darcel Clark, the Bronx Borough president, Vanessa Gibson, council member Rafael Salamanca, the guy lives there. I don't know if it's his, it might be on his driver's license for all I know. He's there so much. Ruben Diaz Jr. always there. Councilwoman Frias always there. Former Councilwoman Velasquez always there. Assemblywoman Jennifer, I think her last name is Rajkamaj. I don't know how to say it right. She's always wearing a red dress. You can't miss her. Where Eric Adams goes, she mysteriously is also there. These are the people, some of the people politically that are there. Remember that Jimmy himself is a self-admitted criminal, and there's numerous criminals and felons that are there. So we came to find out also in June of 2022, they were visited by the New York City Buildings Department. Now, the Buildings Department went there and found that they had a structure. It's a 50 by 100-foot structure on the side there. That's part of the place. It's a wooden structure with a fake green leaves and a fake neon sign. And they came to say that, look, they gave him a $2,500 fine and said, you need to take the structure down because it's unsafe, meaning it's a public safety hazard. Structure's been there to this day, Craig. It's still there, in fact.
Wow, look at that.
They ordered them to take that down. So mind you, they got the liquor license on the same day. So they've been operating illegally this whole time because they have parties nonstop. Because remember, it's a restaurant lounge with that structure being the part where people dance, the DJ, all that stuff is in that structure, which is illegal. They also got visited by the fire department 2 months later, got hit with 19 violations on one day. They don't have any of the fire suppression system, all this stuff you need. So now it's a fire trap. Remember that in the Bronx many years ago, there was a place called Happy Land, and Happy Land had the incident where 87 people unfortunately perished in a fire. Why? They weren't up to code, and that's why they're very, very strict with these rules now. So they then later on went back in October of 2023 and hit them with another violation. So now they have 3 court orders pending on them that stated that they have to take the structure down, they have to do this, there's been no inaction by them. Then we come to find out that the landlord, his name is Joseph Dodonna III, he put in an eviction notice. He's in landlord-tenant court with them. He wants them, he said, take that structure down, number one. Number two, he's worried because if anything goes wrong in that place, who's responsible?
It's on him, the owner, 100%. So Sal, real quick, before, because I do want to rewind to your charge of why you lost your job.
Oh, yeah.
Uncompensated work. What was it called that they charged you with?
Uncompensated security. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just dissect that for 1 second. So technically, I'm a felon, right? I'm a felon. If I was in a restaurant with you, and if we were just sitting next to each other and someone took a picture, you could be charged with that same charge again. Is that how I'm seeing this? How could they prove that?
Yeah, what they could do is what they'll say is they could take a picture like they did, they've done it with me. They've done it with everybody except anyone picture with Richie Cabana or Jimmy Rodriguez.
Right.
What they do is they'll say, okay, this officer was associating with this gentleman and he has a record. And I also believe that he's doing his security. They'll look at this and they could take this any which way they want. They could then want to call you in. They want to see your phone records because they'll look at your past and say, whatever you did in the past, they'll now try to use it against you.
Right.
And this is why the rule is a broad brush. Because in reality, what it should say, that whole part that I said, reasonably believed to have engaged in criminal activity, but it should say ... and a commission of a crime, which is what is occurring at Ponce Frito.
Right.
That's the difference. They're all actively engaged and helping. Yeah, they're having parties. Meanwhile, this place is violating every rule in the book. Every rule in the book. And there's numerous other unsavory characters that go there besides Jimmy Rodriguez. But now Richard Cabana is front and center because he's violating this rule. It's reckless endangerment because now the landlord went, try to get him evicted. They're in the court right now. So he's violating multiple court orders. The landlord doesn't even want him there. God knows whatever else is going on. And meanwhile, Craig, all we hear about is there's fundraisers there. So Carl Hasty had 3 birthday fundraisers in like 4 weeks there. There's only 1 birthday in 1 calendar year for you, right? What the hell was that all about?
Right.
And when he's there, it's all unsavory characters. The police department, all these chiefs and deputy commissioners and Eddie Caban and Eric Adams, and they're all there, and Letitia James. Letitia James is always there for the fundraiser, anything involving money. So they're always pictured there. So you have to ask yourself, what are these people always doing there, Craig? What is the first thing that would come to mind?
Sounds like a racket, brother.
Yeah. This sounds
like a racket.
This sounds like it's for this crew of cast of characters. This is the Ravenite Club. And I don't want to punish the average cop that just walks in there unknowingly because some people don't know that's the point. He's endangering the lives of many people by keeping that place open, knowing that structure has been already deemed unsafe by the buildings department and the FDNY, said it's a fire trap. How are you staying open? How does he still have a liquor license? That's the other question. How does he have a liquor license? What's going on here? So that's the whole point of this place. This is, I believe, the biggest scandal in the last 30 years, only because one of the main reasons is the owner on paper is the brother of the police commissioner who happens to hang out there every other night or whatever. Every night he's pictured there so much, you would think that Eddie Caban's the owner. So it's like, what the hell is going on here, really? And yes,
you're essentially measuring this one relationship you have with Roger Stone to these many, many examples of them breaking the same laws that they charged you with. And it's very clear. I mean, you just went a good 5 minutes of examples thoroughly. And they have some very vague uncompensated work sounds so broad brushed. I mean, they can literally charge that on anybody that they deem they want to get rid of.
That's right. And I go back to this, Chris. So look, so with Roger Stone, right? Roger's my friend. I've known this guy. I knew him before he was, they put him through the witch hunt. I was there during the witch hunt. I was there for his family. I supported him. Him and his wife are basically like family for me. Nidia is like, she's almost like, if you see her, she's the sweetest little lady. She had cancer, all because of the stress, the government, everyone it was all political. Lying to Congress, I can pick out 20 guys right now off the top of my head that lied to Congress. Pete Rose, what's his name? Fauci, the guy, Comey, the other guy that behind him, the other FBI, McCabe, they all lied to Congress, every one of them. Brennan, right. The list could go on and on and on and on and on. But they chose to pick on Roger. So they say, so he got put through hell. He had a witch hunt of a trial, and I was there for the trial. I was there for his sentencing. I'm not there as his bodyguard or his security. I'm there as his friend. And you could tell through all this time, and you could talk to his family, which the NYPD never bothered to call him and ask him. I was his friend. Solely because I was his friend, they did this. And they try to make up these charges. Because I'll tell you these couple of things, Craig. In this investigation, when they did with me, number one, they never found one payment. The only payments that were exchanged was Nidia reimbursing me for things I paid for them. So she paid me twice on Venmo. I remember they made a huge deal about it. Like, oh my God, he just got John Gotti paid him money to assassinate somebody. Like, that's how they were acting. And you had nothing. It was nothing.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
Secondarily, they were saying, you acted as uncompensated security, but there's never been proven there was any kind of uncompensated anything. And then the third thing was that they said that I wanted a civil war in this country. So they're trying to overthrow the government. No facts. There's a blank letter, and all the pictures they have of me basically in Associated Press, like pictures with, like, I don't know, Roger, other political figures. It's all political. So.
And this was because they were saying that you were going to January. What's the connection between those allegations and the January 6th stuff?
Oh, here's the truth of that. So on January 5th and 6th, I was with Roger Stone. On January 5th, he gave 2 speeches, legally permitted rallies. There was nothing nefarious that happened that day. On the 6th, I woke up. I was supposed to try to get tickets to the Ellipse for not only myself, but Roger and a couple other people. Because remember, could he have come with me to that? Yeah. Roger Stone walking through the streets of D.C., probably either A, the second most hated guy there, or B, the second most recognizable guy there, either way, behind the president at this time. That's not feasible. So I'm going there, not only for myself to get my ticket, but everyone else. And it was chaos. I could never get a straight answer of where to go, where the tickets are. So we were done. I was done in the morning. I said, this is not going to work. There was a huge crowd outside. And I stayed in my hotel, couldn't leave until later on in the day, and then went home. That's the end of the story. That's the legit. They asked me 1,000 times. That was all that was there. The guy that did security for us, or not for us, for Roger, he was doing security. That guy ended up getting questioned. He got called by the NYPD, and he himself said, Sal Greco had nothing. He didn't do anything wrong that day. He was nothing out of the ordinary. The guy's a great guy. They said that apparently out of this, he was telling them I was security. I don't know how that is because he was security. So they were running with whatever crazy narrative they wanted to try to fit their narrative, that I've tried to be a bad guy and I was there and I did something illegal. So when this investigation is finally over, they established a few things that were easy. Number one, me and Roger had no civil or criminal liability in regards to January 6th. Any day before, any day after, all this period, there was nothing. They looked through my phone records. They were chasing me down. They acted as if I was, I was Roy DeMeo back in the late 70s, early 80s. Nothing there. Nothing there. And I want to make this other point, Craig. Look, my father got sick in the middle of this, right? He got diagnosed with brain cancer. So when finally, he just digressed real quick. It was like 1 month. He went from being a normal 76-year-old guy in great health to just, he wasn't there anymore. So I'm going to the hospital to see him, right? Now, my family can't go because I lived in Staten Island. They lived in Pennsylvania. They couldn't go because at the time there was these COVID protocols. And I think They had the sniffles, so they wouldn't let you in. I was the only one that was in perfect health. So I get in my car to go there. Lo and behold, some vehicle's following me. And I say, I know I got a tail. And I could assume that it's the police department. And I found out it was. And through Discovery, I got the video and stuff that they were taking videos of me. So I went there. They followed me
You
there.
do FOIA? You FOIA'd for the
No, they had to give me that when I challenged them in the NYPD department trial.
And you found the actual video.
Correct. I have the video. I saw the video. So they had to. They followed me. The guy's waiting outside the hospital. Like, what do you think? I came to find out what it said on the bottom. They had to do surveillance to see if I was going to come into contact with Roger Stone and somebody else, someone that worked for him. But Roger's the main point of this.
Yeah.
Roger, how am I going to go see him driving when I have work that night? To drive to Florida where he lives would take over 17 hours. And what would it take to come back to New York? You're going to do that in one day? So that's where they follow me. And while this is going on, Craig, so my father passes away. There's never any closure. There were cars in front of my mother's house. My father, before he passed away, saw it. Nobody could figure out who this was. I never to this day. Maybe I find out it was them. I don't know. Because eventually I also got subpoenaed by Congress, by the January 6th committee. But that was later on. So this part that my father got sick and then I was no closure. And my family, we never had a funeral or a wake. And this was a man, Craig, you're in Staten Island right now in New York. You ask my father's name. The guy is a hero to the Italian-American community. The Italian-American community loved my dad. I'm talking from Canada down to Florida. He helped so many people in the 70s and 80s and 90s that came here with nothing. They needed help can you find me a pizzeria? My father would be like, yeah, this guy's selling it. He would drive them there, okay? Because he was in the food service, food distribution business. So my father got an untold amount of people. Nobody knew he passed away. You can't call anybody. You know why? Because they were looking at my phone. They wanted to see all my phone records. Remember, they wrote narcotics. So they saw, one person they looked at was Frank Morano, a host on WABC. He does a show there every midnight for 5 nights a week. They looked at it. They actually, my discovery, in the file has his name on it. And on the bottom says, no convictions, meaning they ran his name. Why? I don't know. Frank Morano's never even got a parking ticket in his whole life. So they did this so thoroughly, acting as if I was Roy DeMeo. At the same time, Craig, who are they hanging out with? Mr. Jimmy Rodriguez, and they're hanging out at Cold Sofrito with all those violations, all this crazy stuff going on.
Sal, here's the $1 million question. Who do you think was gunning for you with either your relationship with Stone or you being at J6? Who do you think now, Monday morning quarterback, was at the helm of getting rid of you?
I can't really say. It's got to be somebody, some nefarious character, either in the police department or was at that time in, let's say, the de Blasio administration. The thing is that Eric Adams then became mayor, and he could have looked at this for what it was and say, I don't know, this smells funny here. This whole thing stunk. But yet they continued to persecute me. They wanted to put me through. They could have handled this many different ways, but they didn't, Craig. They wanted to go. They wanted that narrative. Sal Greco's head must be hung because it's all political.
Yeah, Sal, I think Eric, we were talking offline, and you made a good point. He had a real opportunity to become a New York hero, Eric Adams, and he really dropped that ball. He really dropped that ball. My wife says it too. My wife is like, he could have literally say, listen, I know what de Blasio did. I don't want to override him, but let's get rid of the mandates. Let's get behind the police. And he kind of pump faked, saying, he's going to be tough on crime and stuff. But he really let you guys, the NYPD, down in a big way. And he let New York City down.
He's a disgrace. This guy, look, Eric Adams, when he was on the job, okay, we're going to go back to the early mid-90s, okay? Number one, he was in transit, and he was part of an association called the Guardians, the Transit Guardians. Eventually, the Guardians were also part of the police department, and the NYPD Guardians were the real official Guardians at this time. He was trying to take the helm of this organization. This was how this platform then later became the 100 Law Enforcement Blacks, which is how he became a big figure. It was his political stepping stone, because as a cop, he was a sergeant. The guy was a house mouse. He didn't do anything. The guy was, all he did was he was hanging out down there at City Hall with Al Sharpton, who's a criminal, by the way, by the book. And then later on, he was a bodyguard and compensated security for who? Mike Tyson, and then Louis Farrakhan, another guy he was hanging around with.
Was that the same law that you got charged with back then?
He got investigated, but he was never charged. He never took any days from it. There was no discipline out of any of that. But he did exactly what they said I did, only he got paid for it.
Wow.
Because he had political power. He was part of the Guardians, the Transit Guardians, then eventually the Grand Council Guardians, and then 100 Law Enforcement Blacks. And he became a captain. So along the ranks, he's been under a cloud of dust. There were fundraising issues. I don't know what he did with money back then. Kind of what you're hearing now is what he did then, only this was the 90s. You can't go back 35 years and go, oh, look. But if you knew him and you know this time period as a cop, you would know, yeah, this is his MO. Then he becomes a state senator, where then he's involved in the race casino, that whole scandal. Read his testimony. He's guilty as sin. How he didn't get charged, I don't know, because everyone else with him got charged. Malcolm Smith, what's that guy? Monasat, was another Hiram Monasat, I think his name is. There's another state senator. All these guys got charged. Bottom line, they were all friends of Eric Adams, yet he didn't get charged. He later then becomes the Brooklyn Borough president and then the mayor. But all these fundraising stories you're hearing, he learned all of that when he was in the police department, because he was doing that back then. The guy's always been under a cloud of dust. He's great linguistically. I heard him at a town hall the other day. And what did he say? He's trying to say that they treating him the way they treated David Dinkins. No, David Dinkins did not have illegal immigrants and undocumented aliens running around the city destroying things and punching and beating up cops. He's trying to put that link because he's looking for his defense when they actually indict him shortly. He's trying to say, oh, I'm doing it because it's race. They didn't do that with David Dinkins. He was an incompetent mayor, David Dinkins. He did a lot of messed up things, but he wasn't doing anything criminal like he is. Right. So he's out there. He puts down Giuliani. Oh, they do this. So he's trying to say that David Dinkins was the reason Giuliani would be successful, and that Giuliani was bad because he's bad to his people. He forgets that he himself was a Republican, because he became a Republican. He went in the Daily News. You can look this article up where then Eric Adams says, Giuliani is great. I support him. And guess what? David Dinkins was soft on crime. In one instance, he's playing to an African-American crowd in Brownsville, because that's who he's always like this. He plays to the crowd in front of him. That's Eric Adams. If the crowd is African-American, he starts with God told me I was going to be the mayor, all this crazy stuff he's spewing. David Dinkins, yada, 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 yada. He's in front of a crowd full of, a Jewish crowd. He'll then say, oh, I'm going to retire to the Gaza Heights. Who retires in Gaza from whatever? He has a pro-Muslim crowd. He has like Turkish people, which he's in trouble with because he's clearly in the bed with those guys. He'll say, I travel the world. I love being in Turkey. You see, all he is, he's not a real politician. He's a high-end street guy. He was at 15 years old. He was he wanted to be a part of the Dream, not the Dream Team, the Supreme Team. That was a gang in South Jamaica, Queens. They're the reason associated of theirs murdered a cop in front of a housing project. That became why the TNT team happened and why they were raiding all these people back in the 90s, which led to the crack and drug epidemic, and how they put all these rules that Joe Biden passed when he was in the Senate, and then Bill Clinton, that it basically became everyone that was black was targeted mostly, and it was putting people that were incarcerated for drugs, any minor offense, put them in jail for 20 years. And it all became because the Supreme Team had an associate that murdered a cop to try to curry favor. Meanwhile, they didn't really know about it. And that all in one period in the late 80s. Now, Eric Adams is on a documentary speaking glowingly about the Dream Team. Him, this other clown he has, Timothy Pearson, a guy who left the job in a cloud of dust because he doesn't have a good guy letter or a firearm. He actually applied for a firearm license, got rejected by the NYPD, even though he's a retired inspector. anyone in the media want to look into that.
Right.
Timothy Pearson, he speaks very glowingly about the Supreme Team because there was another guy on there, Corey Pegues, who's a retired inspector. This guy went his whole 20-year career. Nobody picked up on the day that they raided the Supreme Team. Corey Pegues wasn't there. If he was there, he would have went to jail with them. He was part of the gang. He's
Right.
but nothing happened to him. Pegues, Pearson, Adams, they're all in love with this Supreme
We're
Team.
seeing a protected system. Yeah.
And he operates
Wow.
like he's one of those guys. He wants to be like
A
Frank
monster.
Lucas,
Yeah, he wants
dressed
to be a
in a
monster.
$5,000 suit. Eric Adams, you know, he reminds me of Mayor Kawani Kilpatrick of Detroit, the original nightlife mayor. And he got 20 years for political corruption. And that's the avenue Eric Adams is headed down.
Yo, Sal, isn't it? It's a weird comparison that we had Koch basically ruin New York, and then Dinkins finished it off, and then Giuliani came and did what he did, and then we had de Blasio basically finished New York, and Eric Adams is just putting the spear in it. But that means something's coming, and those are my only concerns, Sal, because we did put up all these cameras. I wrote this in October, man. I'm like, they're gonna put up. It's like New York always knows to be dressed for the occasion. We had the virus, but before the virus, 5 years before that, what did they put on every corner? They put on urgent cares, pharmacy, and then it was a virus. And while the virus was happening, we put cameras on every corner. They bring the migrants in, and all you need is a little propaganda, and here we go. We got cops beating up, and now everybody's cheering for a big police state. And I'm for public safety when it comes to the Constitution, the Constitution being respected. What I'm concerned about is a total police state because of the people that were brought in here by our government. What's your take on that, Sal? Do you see that? Do you see how the problem solution is always there?
Yeah, see, public safety is going to always be a number one issue because people need to feel like safe out there. There's all kind of criminals running around and stuff. I wouldn't say like so much, criminals where, okay, like, I'm a libertarian, so I don't believe in like you incarcerate a guy and you crush him. Those illegal immigrants, what happened the other day, they should never have gotten bail. You know why? They're a flight risk, and that's exactly what they did. And they operate in impunity because they have it. Because you know what? There's no fear anymore. All this nonsense, all this, pounding the chest Eric Adams does, it's all a wink and a nod. In one instance, he says, he's going to destroy the city, the illegal immigrants. The next instance, he gives them a $53 million credit card deal, and now they get $1,000 a week or something on their credit card in some program. So he's giving them incentives. So This guy is a con man. Him, the other clown lawyer of his, Artie Idala, disgusting guy. He's another one. What happened to him? The Friars Club is no longer. Why don't you look into that with that guy? He says, "Oh, there's mopeds." I heard him. There's mopeds that were in front of my my law office, and I didn't see any. They were all over it. They took pictures, and they were all over in front of his building. Yeah. Look across, go around the block, they're right there. He says there weren't any. He also said there was no crime in the subways. Have you been to a subway? I know Eric
it's insane. It's insane, bro. It's insane. It's like the 80s, bro. It's literally like the 80s. We're in.
It is. So you have to find the medium here. What they have done is they handcuffed the police. What you saw the other day is the cop is afraid to do what he's supposed to do. Why? Because as you saw when Yusef Salam, one of the Central Park Five, who became a councilman, conning his district, saying, vote for me, I'm one of you, and I'm a victim from 40 years ago, even though he was compensated for that, and he has no policy.
Yeah.
So he's in there, and he got pulled over by a cop who did everything by the book. Before he even said why he got to the car, said who he was. He said he was Yusef Salam. He's a councilman. Then he goes, all right, are you working right now? Yes. Okay, have a good day. And he got out of there. This guy said he never told him about his stop, yada, yada, yada. But what he said wasn't true. So Yusef Salam was lying. The cop was covered. They released the body camera, and the cops, the NYPD actually did the right thing and said, we are backing up our cop. But then the media jumps in. So now, even though you have your little camera on, even though it shows that Yusef Salam actually lied, what happens? Now the cop is in, oh, well, CCRB could start a complaint against him. So he's going to lose vacation days. He can, even though it's nonsense. They're going to try to. That's what they look. So a cop in the back of their head is saying, do I really want to get involved? And look at that poor guy. They was getting death threats too. I believe the cop, like they were getting threats because he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
I
Right.
had
No,
a
I watched that.
legal-
Yeah.
He had a his place for
Was it? What were they
Georgia.
claiming that he was racially profiled? That's what the claim was?
Of course, these guys are in love with their complexion as their protection. So he's going to say, "I'm black." He pulled me. He can't even see him in the car. It's so dark.
But
He
now,
doesn't know
wasn't
who
the guy? What was it? The guy black as well? The police officer.
I believe he was Hispanic. He
Oh,
was
he's Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Okay. No, I didn't
But
get to see the guy. So that's what I
the
heard.
thing is he clearly cannot tell who is in that car.
Because of the tints. So the tints were
Exactly.
He got pulled over for speeding or for the tints or both?
He got guys pulled over for both.
Okay.
So
he
did everything by the book. And now what people are saying, what you really should be saying is, why is he current? Now, the cop always have the right for discretion, but I understand some people in the community are going to say, you know something? Why is he getting a break and I don't? Oh, because he's a councilman. And then he came back and tried to use his position saying, how dare you pull me over? I'm a city councilman. That's what it came off as more than anything else. And he's only excuse would be, you pull me over because I'm black, but meanwhile, he can't see in the car. And this is that's going on in the back of a cop's head as those undocumented aliens were in a tussle with the cops because they didn't use their baton, which would have been the first thing I think of while you're fighting. Or, you're fighting for life with a guy. They can't listen. They can't shoot the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that. Well, you can take his baton out, but he can't. Because as you could tell, even with his camera on in another incident, that cop is now facing media scrutiny. And they have to kind of like, he's going through hell.
Public opinion.
So that's
Public opinion is scary. And John McCarry and I, we actually were discussing that. It's like, in one hand with these cameras, and I know this wasn't the police cameras, there was an overview, but just in general, right? It shows how people lie. And so it works in the benefit of the cop. But at the same time, we're also seeing the bad cops. And we want that, right? We want, because there's good men like you, brother. And I just want to say that, like, hearing your story, speaking with John, even brother Eric Dim, I can't wait to have him on. My sister Sully Batista left because of the mandate. She's going to be coming on. Cops for Freedom, brother Arthur. These are all good cops. And we don't want you guys surrounded by the bad cops because you guys are doing what you're supposed to do. I can hear in your voice the integrity, bro. I hear you genuinely have integrity for the job and for the shield. And it's sad because all these good cops are now gone, and I'm meeting all these people, and now they're telling me, Monday morning quarterback.
And the community.
About the NYPD.
Here's the thing, Craig. I used to go in a community. You're right. I did go to that cafe. That is a little bit of something that from my past, because I'm a Sicilian, and I used to hang out at the cafe and have an espresso and watch a soccer game. Yeah, but I went there as a cop, and the guy went in there and goes, "Hey, look, he never forgot, the neighborhood. Nobody's doing anything illegal. They're not. It's not like this Ponza Frito stuff. It's a cafe. You know what? I had a coffee, said goodbye, and that was it. And by the way, I paid. Then I would go to a 7-Eleven. And I just hung out there. The guy had problems there. There were no problems because the guy saw me there. People in the neighborhood see me and go, okay, we can't go mess around over here because this guy's going to come around and start writing summonses or whatever the case is. And then the guy would tell me, I heard this or this in the neighborhood. That's what you need to do. You work for these people around you. You want to make sure you're their eyes and ears. You're their last line of defense. So you want to know, you want to get a jump on something. So I was very big with that. The police department of today seems to have an issue where they're very much clout chasing. They love to be online, like rubbing elbows with a Jimmy Rodriguez. They want to be seen with different people. I saw them put up a picture of some celebrity. You know how many celebrities I would see, and how are you? I just keep going.
Yeah. No idol worship, bro. No idol worship.
I can't. I'm just working. Leave me alone. I don't want to know nothing. Keep me out of your nonsense.
Right.
These guys on the other end want to be in front of social media. And they another thing is that I don't know what the social media policy is now. I believe it's the same one that I was under. You don't interject yourself in anything related with the police department. You don't comment. You have a First Amendment right, but it's almost limited. See, what happened with me was everything I did was on my own dime. It had nothing to do with the police department. I never once put a picture of me in uniform. People used to say, I think you're a politician or you work for one. I don't know what you do for a living. And that's what I wanted. Nobody knew I was a cop. They made it sound like I'm telling everyone I'm in the NYPD and here I am, I'm Roger Stone's friend. I never did that. Right. But now, in today's day and age, There's people in uniform. I see the girls on TikTok, guys on TikTok dancing in uniform. That's a disgrace. I'm sorry. You're a freaking cop. This is not the job, but that's what the management allows. They love the cop chase. But that's what's going to spin back around a boomerang and destroy them in my case.
I think the goal is to make it look more socially, instead of it being like an authority, socially accepted but it's the own rhetoric of the media. It's like that's the issue. The issue is, I mean, listen, I for another video, brother. There's a lot of policies that need to be pulled back to the state constitution. That's for another video. But other than that, the media played a major role. I mean, I remember hearing. I kid you not, brother. I'm friends with a lot of people, neighbors and stuff. I'm very intertwined in my neighborhood, and I would hear like, "Yo, the cops are hunting us," and like just around the time the TV was telling them that. There was a direct connection between the mind state of the neighbor and what the media was spewing. And they were like, no, they're hunting us. The cops are hunting us. And that's dangerous, bro.
I tell you what, in Staten Island, it's a mixed bag because Staten Island's probably would be normally the safest borough only because it's full of city employees. You have a lot of sanitation, you have a lot of fire department, you have a lot of cops there. Now, though, as you know, as a cop, I remember hearing stories. You pull a guy over, and the first thing the guy says in the car, "Do you know who I am?" I think they watch too much Sammy the Bull. And believe me, growing up, nobody knows who the hell that guy was on 18th Avenue. That's a story for another time.
Right.
You all believe the hype and the cop chase, and it's not even a reality. So when you go to a window and you're a cop and you tell license registration, I'm Officer Warren, and your first thing is, do you know who I am? You're already starting off on the wrong foot. No, I don't care who you are. Even that council guy said, when he said his name, he goes, "Oh, I'm Councilman so-and-so." He didn't tell him, "Do you know who I am?" That's a big thing in Staten Island. I always knew about that. So you have the kind of like, that kind of attitude, you got to bring it down. That's a Staten Island thing. But Staten Island would be more, I'd say, a safer borough, but they have a drug problem. They've always had a drug problem. They're fentanyl, all this kind of stuff. It's because they're all like, there's nothing really to do in Staten Island because unlike Brooklyn and Manhattan, at 8:30, everybody goes, the door's closed, So it's not Staten. It's not like Brooklyn. Brooklyn was 24/7. I can show you places that were always open. That isn't the case in Staten Island. So what's the easiest thing to do? Drugs. Because if you're a youth, what are you going to do?
Right.
It's 8 o'clock at night, everything's closed. And I used to see this all the time, Staten Island. Like, man, I grew up one way and Staten Island was another. So that's one of the issues that is there. But I would think it would be safer. It's not safe anymore because now they're just flooding every area with criminals and they don't really care. It's almost like a planned destruction, we'll say. It's like a planned destruction of how they're going to destroy the whole city in each borough. And Staten Island would have been the last one. And now there's just crime is through the roof of Staten Island. And really, it's sad to see because this was not something in my time that would have happened because we were still cops and we still did what we were supposed to do, even though I don't believe in a heavy-handed approach, but you need to show sometimes kind of like the old Bronx Tale. It's either you want to be respected or feared, right?
Well, law and order, right? You got that. We have to be, if we don't have law, then we have lawlessness. Correct. So we have to respect the law. And I just, I wish it goes to the bigger conversation that I wish in school we had more teaching of the Bill of Rights, more understanding of the state constitution. Because if we understood this, then we know what to do and what not to do, what our God-given rights are, what the limitation of government is. And none of us know. Here, I'll just ask you a random question now. I mean, how many times did they teach you on the force, the state constitution or the federal constitution?
I don't remember ever hearing about only
and you're Laura, but look at my point. Look at my Sal. Look at my point. Now I'm not speaking to you specifically. Everybody, all our brothers in law enforcement, like they don't even teach it. Think about that. You guys are law enforcement.
They only teach you patrol guide procedures. You have to follow a patrol guide. That's what it is.
Municipal policing, bro, making money.
Municipal law, so it's very, very limited. And there's certain laws that say you could study this, but the patrol guide is but it really doesn't. Because you can hang out with a Jimmy Rodriguez, nothing happens to you. And you're pictured with Roger Stone, you're going to lose your life.
Yeah.
So it's difference. It's all arbitrary. And I thought it was one rule for all. Kind of like two people get arrested for the same thing, but yet one gets let go right off the bat and the other guy's going to central
He's
book.
being held
How
to.
is that?
And you were vague, and it was vague for you because it was uncompensated, which doesn't even exist. That's really like when I heard that, I'm like, that really just baffled me. I'm like, oh, they could just make up whatever they want.
Yeah, I have no idea. Nobody to this day could. I mean, John Macari himself has said, "I go to dinner with my wife. Does that make me her uncompensated security?
Right?
I walk down the street with a cousin. Does that make me his uncompensated security?
Yeah.
All it takes is you're either armed or not armed. Doesn't matter. I'm walking down the street with them. You're uncompensated security. What does that mean? I don't even know
what does that mean. We need a definition to that. Sal, just for last words, man. What's some encouragement you can give to the rank and file? I know you have so much respect for the rank and file of the NYPD. Some words of encouragement to your brothers in blue in this time while they're under this wild leadership.
For the rank and file, that's who I was. Those cops, those sergeants, those lieutenants, those captains that are just in the street and are not involved with this Ponce Frito crew that's running the police department. You got to hang in there, unfortunately. But if you try to do the right thing and you stay humble and find a niche, like my niche was, I love DWIs. I enforced that. At one time, Craig, I wanted to be like a detective. I wanted to go this route, but the certain powers that be, we'll say, in the department didn't like the way they said I was upstaging them. No, I wasn't. You guys were sleeping or eating pizza when I was trying to like solve cases as a rookie or whatever. I had that instinct. I wanted to, but they didn't like that. So then I found a niche that says, you know what? You could do this to try to be a hero, or you could try to, get a bigger pension. How do you do that? You make an arrest like a DWI, which is like, as a cop, you make more money only because you're sitting there waiting for a district attorney to call you. It's a lot of work, let's say, versus a robbery or something, but you're going to make more money in the long run. You may even have court on your days off just to show up to testify about a DWI. So I became like a real expert in this stuff. It was like you found the niche. This was one crime that even if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a radical, a far right guy, you're going to say nobody wants a drunk driver because you definitely don't want to be killed by one, or God forbid a guy, is an accident, whatever the case is, everyone could agree we don't like drunk drivers. So that was a niche I found, and that was what I stuck with. And if somebody else on this job needs to find that niche and make it work, because if you try to do these other things, like you're trying to curry favor with bosses and it's not going to work. You're going to end up on a radar somewhere and they're going to come after you. It's just, the job is always, it's tough. You have to survive 20 years of garbage. I think it's a little more now for the newer people. It's 20 years of garbage, and you might deal with what I had to deal with. And stay away from this social media stuff where you're posting stuff or getting involved in things you shouldn't be getting involved in, like these clowns that are threatening John Macari, including Jimmy Rodriguez. That's outrageous that Jimmy Rodriguez, but
yeah.
That's
and another. He got bad info, bro. I spoke with John. He got bad info when they try to put a battery in his back, and that's unfortunate because then this man thinks John's doing something that he's not doing. It's
Jimmy needs to worry about how he runs that place if he's an owner or whatever he is. That you can't run a business correct, but you're going to blame somebody else, and then you're going to threaten him. And then there was cops involved and Instagram. And guys, don't be. If you want to be a thug, drop the shield and go be a thug in the street. But you can't have it both ways. We can't have thugs with a shield. That makes you worse than the actual thug. You know those gangbangers that are jumping the border right now, coming here illegally in their drug deal? You with a shield doing that stuff is worse than that guy, because you have the ability to go on your little computer and start running people's names. You're worse.
You could set somebody up for the rest of their lives. Yep.
Yeah, you cannot.
That's right, brother.
You're supposed to be the opposite. You're right. They always tell me on the job, you should know better. That's what I'm going to tell you now. You should know better. And by the way, if you're a cop and you're threatening other people, you have to, I'm going to burst your bubble here. You can't assume that a guy who's retired is still a cop like you. They're retired. We're civilians. I'm a civilian. You threaten me, I could have you handcuffed. We're not cops. We're not in the locker room. We're not friends. You're coming to me like a thug. So you're going to get the thug treatment. So just because you have a badge doesn't give you authority over anything. I know this regime up top tries to give you these little rundowns, but as you see, I don't think things are going to end up very well for them in the very near future, because engaging in criminal activity, eventually you spin the wheel of fortune, it lands on bankrupt, and there's your number. So I'm just telling you guys, be smart, be vigilant, find your niche, stay humble, oblige by the rules. Listen, it's just a job. Don't take this job home. Don't take things super serious. I know some people, they hang around the job for like 30, 40 years because, you know, they're Inspector so-and-so on that job, but when they go home, they're just Joe, and they can't handle that. Look, I never did that. When I went to work, it was a job. I had fun. I said it was kind of like I was like the guy hunting. I was the predator hunting people, right? Like I always made that joke, and I was like, that's how I felt, you know. And there's no reason now to say I'm Officer Greco 24/7.
Right.
I was always Sal. I was Sal in uniform. I didn't care. I would have been Sal if I was a captain. I didn't care. It was never that serious. It's always remember who you are, where you come from, and not what you are. Because that's when you get lost, you're going to end up in a situation like, what the hell's going on in that place in the Bronx? Don't end up, don't, you know, he used to tell me on the job, one of the first things I remember, they used to tell me, supervise all these people that had a lot of time on the job used to say, don't be that guy. And that's my advice. Don't be that guy, you know?
Yeah. Sal, where can the people reach you? What are your handles?
Well, on Twitter, it's at the Sal Greco. On Instagram, at the Sal Greco. On Truth Social, it's at Head of the Table. And my website is salgreco.com. You can see the latest. You want to help me, you feel inclined to donate something to support me, I greatly appreciate it if you did. If you have in the past, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And also, if you want to buy a couple of products or whatever I have there, I have shirts. Trying to redo the store, but I mean, I need the time to do. I don't. It's only 24 hours in a day, you know. And it's a news cycle, and I'm hit from all angles. Because yes, I am involved in this lawsuit, but there's other things going on, and you know, there's a lot going. 24 hours is not enough time in a day. That's all I could say.
Are you going to be working with Roger Stone on this new show that he has? On the
I've been on his show. I actually co-hosted his show the other day, and
you did a great job, by the way. I caught about 25 minutes of it so far.
Thank you. Yeah. So I did that show. I'm co-hosting the show now on Thursday nights. It's on Badlands Media on the Rumble channel. You put in Rumble, go to Badlands Media. The show's called Roll Call. My partner's Alpha Warrior. His name is Alfred, but his name is Alpha Warrior, and he was a former cop from Los Angeles, from the California area, and he went through something just like me. They persecuted him over a meme. It was in regards to January 6th. I mean, they came knocking on his door. They terminated him for nonsense, and he has a court case right now. So he's kind of in the same battle with me. Basically, we're in the same bunker together. So I do co-host a show with him. I had John Macari on a couple of days ago, and that went over very well. So I'm doing that. I have other things that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to plan. Yes, you will see me with Roger, and hey, you never know. I've been when Trump has his rallies, I've been to a few of them, so you'll spot me there, and you never know. Maybe you might see me with the president. You might see me on the stage. I mean, look, he's my guy. That's my guy. I'll go down with him. He's going to get my vote. You know why? When he says "Make America Great Again," I feel. I grew up in the 80s. I feel when I was a kid, the America was prosperous. You watch TV, you were proud to be an American. I was watching like all these shows, plus WWF wrestling. I mean, this was like the golden era, was the 80s, the late 80s into the early 90s. And that bit was wiped away under Bill Clinton and company. So, and they say Bill Clinton, oh, the economy was great. Yeah, the economy was great because you were living off all that the Reagan era. And so, it
was also a real estate bubble that people don't like to talk about. They were just giving away. There was a lot of candy to lure people into debt. So
yeah, I hear when I hear this and listen,
no, what I mean is it's not good. Not good. Yeah, they get giving people loans they couldn't even afford.
Yeah, the 80s. So like the 80s is more of the golden era because that's where my own family made a lot of money. You could just do regular work. I mean, it was just people made money. Economy was much better in those times, and then it ended up become so. I hear return to the 80s. That's what I'm hearing, where, law and order was a big thing. Obviously, the Iran-Contra thing, that was the problem. The amnesty thing was the one of the bad things that Ronald Reagan did. But for the one bad thing you could say, he did 20 other things that were great. So that's what I'm hearing, a return to Reaganism, which then became Trumpism. So he's going to be my guy. I believe in Trump. You needed him back. You're going to need him in office no matter what. This guy you have now, look in your pockets and tell me if you really think that this guy is your man. You think he's the man for the job? Guy doesn't even remember where he is. He doesn't know where he is half the time. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I think it's an abuse of an elder. I think it's a crime what they're doing to this guy. But if he's going to run, so be it, because I think it's going to be the most entertaining presidential election season that you've ever seen between Donald Trump, the ultimate showman, and Joe Biden, who doesn't know where he is. And I don't even know if he makes it, meaning if he doesn't step down before the convention. I don't know. If he does, I can't wait to see this debate. I mean, I don't know what to be a comedy. Is it a comedy or is it legit,
Yo, Sal, I tell everybody that Joe Biden, with all his mistakes, has awakened more people than Trump and RFK.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all this shit he did. I mean, we're literally on the brink of World War III, Civil War. He did it all. He had every single thing not to do. Joe Biden did. So even though we're going through hard times, I believe hard times will wake people up. So to make a better America, But Sal, thanks for coming on, man. And I just want to tell you, keep up the great work, bro. Thank you for what you did for our city and standing up. It was probably a real hit that you had a 14-year career and they pulled that from you. It seems like you really cared about New York City. You cared about your job. So I just want to personally thank you here at the Mighty Fuzz podcast. And you're always welcome here, brother.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Listen, I still I'll always have an affliction for New York City, no matter what you're going through. I still think about the glory years. I still see Bensonhurst. I still see Bath Avenue. I still see Coney Island. I still see Crown Heights. Everything I did when I worked, and Staten Island, which I lived for like 17 years, and I miss it, but it's not the same thing that I remember. But it's always living in your heart. That's what matters. And the people. I miss the people. But if you don't like it, you could always move. But at the same time, maybe some people want to hunker down and fight for their territory. Everybody who's putting their neck on the line to defend their rights, like the shelters and stuff, I give my hats off to you. I would be there with you if I wasn't entangled in all this other stuff. So it's like I'm living vicariously through you guys. And don't ever give up. If it's legal, go through with it. You could go out there and protest peacefully. You could get on a megaphone and say what you want. You go to town hall, tell this idiot Eric Adams you want things done a certain way. He only does it in certain neighborhoods, but he did come to Staten Island. I'm stunned. Nobody that was going to challenge him was in there to ask him a question. Put these guys on their heel. Go to a city council meeting. Embarrass those people. You know what? They need to know that you all frustrated with what you're seeing. So that's my advice to you. That's the only way things will change. It's always local. Local is the key. Then we worry about federal.
Let's go. Perfect last words. Sal, thank you. Episode 17, Sal Greco, and we're out.